So hello and welcome to another video, and hope you're all good. Now today we're looking at something very special and quite large, hence being in the studio, and that is the Intrepid 4x5 Black Edition. Now for those of you that don't know, this is a large format film camera. It's a brand new camera. It's an actual 3D printed camera, which is fantastic technology, and we'll take a look around the details shortly. But if you've seen any of my previous videos, and if you haven't, please feel free to check them out. You'll know that I've been shooting a lot of medium format film recently, and as much as I'm enjoying it and really liking the process, I've always been eager to step up and actually have a go at large format. So I went out and purchased all of this myself. It's not sponsored or endorsed by Intrepid. They don't even know I'm making it. But found that after all the research that I've done, you can spend literally thousands of pounds on a large format camera. This camera came in at around about £350 for the camera itself, which was a great point of entry and made it quite accessible to actually have a go at large format. Now, as you'll see, there's other things I've had to purchase in addition to that. So all in all, I think I've spent somewhere in around about the £600 mark. But even so, for hopefully what we get in terms of results, I think that's going to be quite the bargain. So what are some of the details about this camera in particular then? So as I say, it's a 3D printed camera, which I think is a great use of technology for what is actually a design that's been around for decades. This particular camera is basically just a light type box. So you have the lens board at the front with the lens with all of the mechanism that you need. So the shutter, you can change the aperture on there, and obviously you fire the actual leaf shutter from there. You've got the bellows in the middle that allows for extensions for when you're using different focal lengths. So if you're shooting with a longer lens, you'll need to extend it further out. And then you've got the standard at the back, which is where the film goes, and I'll show you the film shortly, but most importantly you've got the ground glass on the back for composing. So very much like an LCD screen on a digital camera, this is how you compose the image, but very differently because this is inverted and upside down. So composing the image can be quite a challenge. Now you will probably have seen people with a dark cloth over their heads composing the image, and that's the reason is that obviously this isn't LCD, it doesn't have any power to it or anything like that. You're literally just looking at the light, so you want to block out as much light as possible so you can see what you're doing on the ground glass at the back. But that's where one of the additional items comes in, which is this. It's a photographer's loupe. It's a little magnifying glass just for looking at the back of the ground glass to make sure that you're in focus. So there's a focus dial at the bottom there, which will push the lens in and out so that you can really nail your focus. And this little magnifying glass allows you just to check the fine edges of details such as buildings or trees or whatever it may be, just to make sure that your image is actually in focus. So what made me choose the Intrepid over some of the other cameras on the market? Well, to be blatantly honest, the first thing was cost. The Intrepid cameras definitely have a good point of entry, and like I say, the actual camera itself cost me around £350, and some of the other cameras that I love the look at, beautiful cameras such as the Chamonix and the Shenhaus, and they basically run into thousands of pounds, and that was just too much of a barrier to overcome when it's something that I'm really experimenting with. So I thought the Intrepids offered really good value for money in terms of, you know, I can give it a go. If it ends up being something that I don't like, well, I can sell the camera again and I haven't wasted too much money. But there are some additional costs that go along with that. So obviously you will need to buy a lens separately. Intrepid don't produce their own lenses. So I went onto eBay and found a second-hand lens. This particular lens itself is a 130mm lens. It's by a company called Schneider, and by all the things that I've read online, Schneider make really good glass, so I'm quite happy with that, and hopefully we'll get some good results from that. But there are also some additional items that you'll need to purchase, so things like you will need a dark cloth. So obviously when you're composing the image, you throw the cloth over your head so that you can see the ground glass at the back. You'll also need a loupe for focusing, so a small magnifying glass so that you can actually see the back of the screen and double check that everything is in focus. Now, some of the other additional items that you'll need to purchase separately are the actual negative holders. But basically these holders, actually it's where the film goes into the holder. You take the dark slide out when you want to expose the image. So you will need to pick up a few of these, and because they basically only take 2 negatives at a time, if you're looking to go out there and shoot multiple images in one day, so you know, you might want to pick up a few of these. I think I've picked up 5 now, so at any one day I can go out and take 10 images. So these will also need to be budgeted for. And probably the other biggest purchase that you'll need to consider making is an actual light meter. Now obviously there's no light meter on the camera, so there's no support in terms of telling you whether it's going to be overexposed or underexposed. You do need an additional light meter to do all your calculations. Now you can use phone apps, and you can, you know, even take a digital camera with you and use a digital camera to give you some exposure settings and hopefully work from that. They are good options, and there are ways of doing that. Personally, I wanted to go down the route of actually getting a light meter just so I can absolutely guarantee that I'm getting the correct exposure settings. This is a spot meter in particular, so that I can read shadows, I can read highlights individually, work out all my calculations for exposure from there. So far I've only actually been out and taken 2 images with this camera, so I can't exactly give any major feedback in terms of how it is to use, although I will say I really enjoyed the process. The biggest problem I have was that I actually messed up the developing. So like I say, I'm developing the film at home and I had a bit of an accident with it and basically ended up exposing the 2 sheets, so they were practically useless. So I am keen to get back out there and take some more shots, but in terms of the actual handling of the camera and how it was to shoot with, I found the whole process really enjoyable. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration, so not just the actual exposure settings themselves, so obviously working out your shutter speed, what aperture you're shooting at, obviously taking into consideration what ISO the actual film that you're using is, and commonly, you know, when you're starting out with these things, I'd probably buy some cheaper expired film so that it doesn't really matter if you do screw up a few shots. So there's consideration to take into account when you're shooting with expired film and stuff as well. But one of the biggest challenges I actually found using the camera was the composition. So when you're looking through the ground glass on the back, the image will basically be upside down and inverted, and that can be quite a challenge when you're actually looking at your composition, when you're trying to work out what you want at either side of the frame and the top of the bottom of the frame. But one of the personal challenges that I found was the actual focusing. So like I said, I don't have the best eyesight, and even using the magnifying glass, found it a little bit difficult to actually see the edges of certain things and make sure that I was in focus. Now, I don't actually have the images to tell you whether they were in focus or not, but it is a concern to me and something that I'm, you know, need to make sure that I'm wary of going forwards. The only thing that I have actually added to the camera, so the ground glass, depending on the conditions that you're shooting in, can be quite dark and it can make it quite difficult to compose. So I've added something called a Fresnel, which is basically a piece of plastic that helps to brighten the image that you're seeing on the back of the ground glass. And I do think that that's going to be a real bonus as well in terms of helping me compose and focus my images. One of the other considerations that you need to make when you're shooting large format is the actual meter inside of it. And like I say, you can use a phone or a digital camera, basically like a light meter to help you get your exposure settings. But I purchased this Minolta Spot Meter M. I'll leave the details to it below. Again, it was another eBay purchase, and this has been a bit of a lifesaver in terms of helping me get my exposure settings, and I've even been using this for my medium format film photography because it is so easy to meter with. So again, getting a good spot meter I think will be one of the keys to success with shooting large format. Now, one of the other benefits of actually shooting large format is the actual negative size itself. I love large images in terms of the actual file that you're working with and things, and I've always shot with large sensors when I've been doing my digital photography. So it's only natural that when I got back into film photography, I was looking for larger formats to use. So I started shooting with 35mm and basically found that the images would fall apart after a little while. So I wanted something, you know, in terms of a better resolution and kind of more robust files. So I went down the medium format route, really enjoyed that, and I will be shooting a lot more medium format. but this is where large format comes in. So with the 35mm negative, obviously you've probably seen the size of a 35mm negative in terms of old film strips and things. This is the actual negative size for large format. So as it says, it's 4x5 inches and it resolves absolutely huge images. They will run into the hundreds of megapixels depending on the quality of the scan that you get. So this was something that really appealed to me, and definitely something that I'm looking forward to actually using when I get the images scanned and, you know, can play with the quality of them. But it isn't all about size, obviously. A lot of this will boil down to things like your film choice and the scan that you get used. So I've purchased some expired film to start shooting with, just to get me into shooting large formats, but I've also bought some Portra 400. Not cheap at all. Film this size is very expensive per sheet. And the other thing to consider is the quality of the scans. Now, I do scan my own medium format and 35mm at home, which is absolutely fine. I've been pleased with the results. With a large format like this, I think I'm going to have to go and get these scanned by a proper lab. Now, one of the other things to consider is the actual quality of that scan. So I'm going to get these drum scanned, which is a scanning process that helps pull basically a lot more detail, a lot more resolution out of each negative. So there's an additional cost with that as well. But fortunately, we've got a lab fairly local to where I live who have been great in terms of supporting me and helping me out. And they've been guiding me through some of this process as well. So I can't wait to see some of the images that they actually scan for me. So what's next for me in terms of using this camera? Well, obviously I'm very keen to get out there and try and get as many shots as I can. Currently waiting for another item that will allow me to develop the film at home. I need a larger holder for when I'm actually doing the development at home. So I haven't actually been out and shot any additional shots, but while we've got the nice autumnal colours, I'm very keen to get out and actually use the camera itself. But this is very much part of a journey. It's all about learning how to do these things. And I will be making more videos about the actual camera itself, how to use it, how to set it up. I'll do some out in the field videos so you can see me actually setting the camera up and using it. But also, you know, offering more videos in terms of advice on things like the film choice and a little bit more detail about the scanning process as well. So do consider hitting subscribe if you're interested in large format film or even medium format and 35mm, because I will be making more videos about those alongside my regular photography related ones. And I've got a couple of other videos coming up about digital work as well. So it isn't all film photography by any means. But yeah, that's the Intrepid 4x5 Black Edition. Can't wait to get out there and use it. If you are considering large format yourself, or if you're already shooting large format, please leave a comment below. I'd love to know how you're going along your journey and any of the problems that you're having or how you've overcome those. And I think it's really good that we talk as a community and share our details and things. It helps us all kind of move along together. So yeah, can't wait to get out and use that. Do please hit the like button if you've enjoyed the video. It's one of the best ways that you can help support the channel, and I look forward to seeing you in another one soon. Cheers.